Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me on another of my wonderful videos. Today, live in the studio, I have my guest. He's been on before. His name is Colin Wyatt. He is I've written it down here, a channeler and energy healer. Colin, welcome to the show.
Hey Richard, how you doing?
I'm all right, thank you very much.
Good.
This time in the studio we have a second camera, which I'm very excited about. So you may see me press the button so I can cut to you. Yeah. But that's just a technical thing. Yeah. Anyway, it's so nice to see you. Thank you very much for coming along. Thank
you for making this possible.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Now we were talking about EFT, that's the bank for me. EFT, which is the tapping stuff.
It stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques.
I'm glad you said that.
Yes.
Yeah, Emotional Freedom Techniques. And we looked at that as a method of healing. And another lady who came on the show was talking about how she was using it to get people to contact her. Because she was, I don't know how it worked, she imagined that she was tapping them, and then in the next breath they were ringing her up and saying, "Oh, hello," which is a bit strange. So, but one of the things that you said to me quite recently was that you have these downloads because you're a channeler, and we'll get into that.
Yes.
How you channel, why you channel, where it comes from. But the main thing was you said that you had a very important message to bring to us.
Indeed, yes.
So first, just explain for those people who might be coming to this the YouTube video for the very first time, going, well, what is channeling? You know, you're not talking about going over to France on a cross-channel ferry.
You could be, but not in this case.
No. So what do you mean by channeling, and what is it that you're channeling?
So for those that haven't or didn't tune into the previous one, which I suggest you do, because there's lots of information that comes down through there as well. But so channeling is all about understanding who and what we are in this universe, in this amazing place that we call the universe, reality, or whatever, and that nothing's disconnected from the next thing. Everything is in contact with the next thing, and nothing's really separate from itself. And so channeling is where if we are just an aspect, if we are just like an aspect of consciousness, which we are, then it must mean there's more beyond us somewhere. Right?
Yeah.
And so we come here, we have this experience, but it means that there is what some people consider it called being called the veil. Right. So you've probably heard that term before.
So the veil is lifted.
The veil is lifting
to the other side.
Yeah, to the other side, and there we have then what is the other side. You know, and that's where, for me anyway, that's where my channeling comes from. In that sense of, there is an energy that permeates internally within me, that communicates in certain ways. It always normally comes in forms of questions, like, you know why this is happening? And I go, no, and then I get the answer as to why.
So just explain that, because I don't quite get this. Do you hear voices in your head?
Yeah, but it's not like that sounds really mad.
I know, it's not like a little voice going, "Hey, I'm talking to you."
And I don't see dead people. But
right. Oh, that's all right. There's a film like that.
Yes, there is. Yeah, it's not so much. It's more of a thought form. I do hear audible voices as well, but primarily it's all taking part in thought form. So it is like a voice, but it's not like something you hear through your ears. It's more like, it's really strange. You hear it through your head.
Yes.
It's not here. It's not heard here. And so when that information kind of comes in, it will communicate. It will ask, like I said, in the form of a question, and say, "You know why this is happening, don't you?" And I'm like, "No." And it happened in 2020, actually. When 2020 happened, well, whatever happened in 2020.
Well, let me think. Something happened in 2020. Yes. It was quite an event, really, if I remember rightly.
Indeed. And when that happened, literally within 2 weeks, I was driving down through the A12, and I had this thought voice come in, That's a really good way of explaining, actually. It's a thought voice.
Right.
Come in, and it said, "You know why this is happening, don't you?" And I said, "No, I have no idea. Why is this happening?"
When you answer, are you talking out loud?
In my mind,
in your mind?
there's a conversation
yeah.
going on internally. You know, we have that internal dialogue.
Yeah.
You know.
So it's
like that.
Yeah. So you are aware that it's you and some other.
Oh,
thoughts.
absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. There's me, and there's something else that's interacting for sure. And I said, no, I have no idea. What is 2020 about? And they said, well, it's actually to create a digital currency. It's to take the money. It's to create a collapse in the financial market. That was the actual words I had. It's to create a collapse in the financial market. I had no idea what that even meant. No.
Wow, that is.
And we're only recently finding out what this is all about. Right?
Isn't that spooky?
I found it interesting because I didn't understand it at the time, and then what happens is I get the information, and then I get things like confirmation of events that come, and maybe within a couple of days, maybe sometimes in hours, where something will pop up maybe on my feed, or I'll have a conversation with somebody, and suddenly there's the confirmation, exactly what's happening. But
so I mean, most people would say that's kind of like psychic.
Well, we're using our psychic abilities a lot. Right. We all do. We all do this. We all channel.
Do we?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Gosh,
we've
even
all
me.
helped, especially you.
Especially. Well, okay. Well, we'll get into a bit of that. So, I mean, do you write this stuff down, and so that you can look back on the thoughts and then go, look at this. Here's a diary entry for 2018, and I've had this prediction, and here it is. It's true. So that skeptics go, blimey, okay. Assuming they'd seen the diary before it happened. I guess that has to
right. Well, before I actually knew what it was, no. I wasn't writing anything down. Right. It was just like, oh, well, that's interesting. Oh, wow, that's come true. That's interesting. And then when I realised what I was doing, I was like, okay. And in the back of my mind, and actually this happened even before I was writing things down, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, wow, I remember that. Oh, that's really interesting, But by the time I come out of whatever that dialogue was with me, it's gone. And every time I try to reach for it, it's almost like a rainbow. You'll never reach the rainbow, and it just goes further and further away until it just disappears. And I'm like, I've got to find a way of documenting this, you know. So
because there's no point putting a tape recorder on because it's all going on inside there,
right?
And you can't
but it's not always internal. So when I channel in other ways, it's through voice as well. So it's like I put myself to the side, and I allow this energy that's never said anything. It's never said anything negative, and it's certainly never got me to do things that I didn't want to do. So I know there will be a lot of people out there thinking that afraid and put in fear of demonic energies and stuff like that, which I completely understand.
Yes,
but
because the thing is, I mean, a lot of people obviously say, well, those people who hear voices in their head that might say go and stab somebody in the back or what have you, or you hear these people in prison who said, yes, I was told to do this, and then. So you think, okay, you're a bit psychotic with this, or schizophrenic, isn't it? You're hearing these voices.
Or highly influenced.
Yeah. But then at the same time, somebody who says, oh, go and give that person, a cuddle or something like that, oh, that's the voice of God. And I always think, well, how do you differentiate between the two? Yeah. How do you know one is a good one and one is a bad one? So
there's something I heard a long time ago, and it said, when you're praying, you're talking to God.
Right.
But if God talks to you, you're mad.
Yes. Well, they are.
This is a two-way conversation. How can it only be one way?
Yeah, it is. It is a strange thing. So, how long have you been doing
that? So my awakening happened in our timeline here at 2012.
Right.
Which would have been 2000.
And we're going to get. I'm going to write that down because we are going to get onto timelines because you've got some interesting stuff. So so quite late then, because you hear of some people who they do this as a child. They've always been aware of.
I've always done it, but I didn't know what I was doing, and this is the thing. Right. I really didn't know what I was doing, and I just thought it was natural. I mentioned before on the last thing that I would have these voices. So before I go to sleep, because you're more open just before you go to sleep, because you're entering something called theta brain state, and this is where the frequency drops on your brain, and this is all scientifically proven. And so when that happens, you're more open to suggestion as well. So this is where brain entrainment comes in, where you can actually do something about half an hour before you go to sleep. If you're regimented, so let's say you go to sleep at 10 o'clock at night, 9:30 would be the time you would start actually doing this brain entrainment. And if you're not regimented, when you start yawning, that's when you would do the brain entrainment. So we already know that it lowers this threshold to this reality, and we start entering an altered state, because we are multi-dimensional beings. We have different states of mind.
Right. Oh, I see.
So when someone says you're in a right state, absolutely,
that's it. You're in a right state, because you are literally going from state to state.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So this channeling is like something guiding you, like a guide. I mean, some people call
Absolutely.
it maybe spirit guides, or it's, as you said, God talking to you. And these messages presumably then are important that you take heed of them, especially if you're aware that this is what's coming to you. And you've described them, and I've heard this from others, as downloads.
Yeah.
Like downloaded information that you then have to digest.
And it's done at such a high speed that it's not where you have to go, okay, tell me what's going on, tell me. It's like sometimes it's, and you know something's happened, and you know there's a shift inside, you go, right, what is that? And then you just have to sit down and decipher. And to me, it's like one of those little puzzle games with the where you have to get the picture and you have to slide the little square pieces around.
Yeah,
you have
like
one piece
Tetris.
missing. Right, and you have to, and you keep moving around until you get the picture. And you go, oh, there it is, And so sometimes, because it's so much in a short space of time, you have to kind of decipher what this is all about,
Okay.
So yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, and you say that, and everybody can do this to a certain degree.
Absolutely, 100%. We're not part of the universe.
Right.
We're not part of the veil beyond.
So we should, and I suppose, is it that some people, I mean, you see, it's the sort of thing that I've struggled with, because it's one of those things you think, I'd like to know this is true, and then every time I try and do anything like this, nothing happens. You sort of sit down in a quiet room, and you're there going, okay, I'm open to this, I'm really open to it. And is it that thing about trying too hard?
What we don't give it is time.
Or we don't give it, right, okay.
It's about development, and we were talking earlier, and some people are just naturally gifted at getting all this information in. Some people are just naturally gifted at creating a beautiful wooden table.
Right.
Some people have to work at creating that beautiful wooden table, and some people have to work at creating that link and the channeling, so
it's practice
it
makes
can
perfect.
all be done. Everybody does it. Everybody does do it, even if they're not aware that they do.
Right. Okay. Well, I shall just have to practice harder and harder.
Well, again, give up trying.
Yes,
that's the whole thing about it.
Harder and harder,
the least resistance. Just be still and listen, observe.
Yeah, interesting. I'd be interested, actually, from the audience there, those people that are sort of thinking that they do this, or know that they do this, or those who have also, a bit like me, tried it, become frustrated and given up. Like those people who might once have had access, say, to a piano and thought, oh, I'll try and, oh no, this is too complicated, and then you give up. And it might be that you're giving up just that time before you suddenly master it. So you mustn't give up.
There's a true story from Think and Grow Rich, and it's called 3 Feet from Gold.
Ah.
And this is actually true in the book. I forget the guy's name, but he bought a plot of land thinking it was in the gold rush, and he had a good feeling about it, and he started digging out, and he got little bits of gold back, and he thought, oh, could be onto something here, and he dug a bit deeper, and it was like, wow, this is something special. So he covered it all up, and he went back to his town, and he said, look, I've got this amazing plot, there's definite gold here, I need help to finance to get the machinery in so we can actually dig deeper. So the town put together, and they all contributed to him getting this machinery. And so he set all the machinery up, and he was digging. He was getting little payloads, and then suddenly it stopped. And he kept on digging. Stop, nothing. Digging, nothing. Digging, and he was so sure that he was close to getting that mother lode, and yet every time he dug, nothing happened.
Nothing.
Totally defeated, he called it a day. He sold the metal to a scrap metal merchant, and he went back with his tail between his legs. He had just enough to pay the people back for the equipment. And the scrap metal merchant, having a little bit more knowledge than the guy who owned it before, thought, well, I'll just get a geophysicist to come in just to have a look at what's going on. And the guy came in and he said, well, whoever had this before wasn't aware of fault lines or veins, I think it was. But if you dig just about 3 feet more, you'll hit the mother lode. And it turned out to be one of the biggest gold mines, 3 feet. Big lesson for the guy that sold it, because he said, never again will I quit. Never again will I ever quit. And he ended up forming America's biggest insurance company.
Oh, right. Gosh.
Not that maybe that's a
yeah
good thing, who knows, but
no, well, that's true.
But he didn't give up, and he created something huge.
Right, okay, so I won't give up then. I shall carry on doing my whatever. So now you said to me, as I alluded to at the very beginning of the show, that you wanted to come back on the show because you had some very important information to tell the audience and whoever will listen from a download that you've had. So let's find out what that is all about.
Okay, so
I wish at this point I had dramatic music I could just put in, but there is none.
So just before we get to that point, we have to kind of backtrack just a touch, because in order to see what's happening or what this channeling is about, we have to kind of see where we are today. In order to know where we're going, we have to know where we are. So we can't just put these rose-tinted glasses on and think everything is la-di-da.
Yeah.
We have to see what's happening in the world today, okay, as an example. And one of the things that's happening is what's going on in the sky.
Yes.
Yes, these particular lines in the sky. In fact, the Hopi Indians prophesied this a long time ago, and they said they were talking about white cobwebs, when white man will come over and he'll do whatever to the country, and then he said there'll be white cobwebs in the sky. Now, if you didn't know what you were looking at, it would look like white cobwebs, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You know,
so, and we're talking chemtrails, if anyone's hadn't twigged onto it.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to say the word. I'll let you.
So we're banned. No, we did. We got Dane Wigington on the show, and we were talking about exactly that. And he was great. If you haven't seen it, do check the back catalogue. It's probably in March, I think. But so the Hopi Indians were prophesizing the cobwebs in the sky.
And when they prophesize, they're channeling.
Right. Oh, are they? Oh, okay. So they're being told this.
What is a prophet? You know, if you look at religion, what is a prophet? It's someone that's receiving information.
Yeah.
How does God only speak to one person, or a handful of people, and not to everyone else on the planet?
Right. Okay. So we know that these were coming in. So how does that help us knowing that they're pumping into the atmosphere all these heavy metals and different particulates and things?
Well, it comes down to where we're being thrown off of all these different timelines. Okay, so within this fabric of reality as we see it right now, we're being almost blindfolded in or hypnotized away. So lots of distractions going on to keep you from seeing actually what's actually happened, especially through history. And the way that we create a really big change is by all of us focusing on one thing and not deciphering or not watering down that energy that we all have to be able to create the reality that we want to live in together, co-creatively. And it would be to focus on one sole intention or attention at one specific time. And for me, what I've received is that the one to be looking at is not everything that's going on down here, because there's so much of it.
Yes.
But up there's one thing happening, And if we look at that one thing that's going on up there with these planes that are putting this stuff out, we start creating a level of awareness which is much more powerful than it being diluted down through contrails or chemtrails or banking systems or freedom of rights or
ID cards,
you know what I mean? Yeah, and everything, you know, because we can get tied up in it, and it creates this brilliant distraction where all of our energies gets diluted. If we focused in one place, and I keep getting the information, it comes through all the time. It says, look up, look up,
look up,
look up. You know,
right?
If you can look up, these amazing digital devices we have called phones are great, but they keep us looking down.
Yeah. Yes. That's
you know,
very true.
they take us away from the one thing, because if we focus one attention and intention up there, everything will change.
But so we're looking up and we're seeing the chemtrails, but how does that help us? I mean, it's not like we can stop them.
Well, again, when we come to the power of thought, there was a study done in Washington DC. And in Washington DC, they got lots of people coming together from all over the world. So they had they had religious people, they had spiritual people, all different types of people coming in to specifically, I think it was 4 weeks they spent focusing on lowering the violent crime rate in Washington DC.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah, so I think it's something like, I don't know the exact number, but it's something like 76%, and it's never dropped. It's always been at that percentage. And these people came in. They did their stuff 24 hours a day. They would just take it in shifts, just praying, just to lower the violent crime rate. And at the end of it, they did a check on the violent crime, and it dropped.
Wow.
It never dropped in history before, and it dropped to something like 74% or something like that. But there was a drop, and it's never done that. And they said, well, they checked everything. They checked the weather, you know, the financial market, everything, just to see if there was some fluctuation that could explain it. And they couldn't explain it. The most bizarre thing about that was afterwards, when everyone went back home, that crime rate rose back to 76%. It's never dropped since.
Well,
that is the power of thought. And when we come together, we can change anything.
No, I did a video, funnily enough, only a week ago, saying exactly that sort of thing. Asking if it was possible, if you had enough people together. And this was because the essence of the video was we have these people in power in the government, or in place, and they're selecting what policies they want us to abide by. And my point was, we know we want to get rid of those people and have a new set of people, but actually all that takes a lot of time in getting people to vote and all of that. Well, wouldn't it be great if we just make those people in place change their mind? Because they're already there. All they've got to do is pull a different lever. And instead of having digital IDs and CBDCs, they go, do you know what, this is a crazy idea, we won't do it. Now, I don't know whether, how many people you'd need to get and how long you'd have to be all concentrating on that sort of thing. But that was my thought, that you'd do that. And some people said, that was kind of possible. But it's organising it, I suppose.
Well, something I got channeled a long time ago, as in, like, literally when all this weirdness began to happen. From anyone that thinks I'm weird, look what happened in 2020.
Yeah, that's true.
How weird is that? And it's been getting weirder ever since.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's getting weirder is because there's a saying that came down, and it says, the more they tighten the grip, the more the people realise they're being strangled. And what that means is, because they are so focused on control, what it actually does is they have to keep tightening that grip, but it's going to become so evidently obvious to us that we go, hang on, and the spell's broken.
Right.
So they, in and of themselves, are going to create this great awakening, because there is the Great Reset, which they're trying to bring in, and the Great Awakening, and they're trying to divert you from the awareness of a Great Awakening into a Great Reset, so that you just get more hypnosis into that, getting funneled into that belief.
Yes, and I would say that people are waking up like they've never woken up before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huge numbers.
And then at the same time, I also hear that they have nowhere to go, so they have to keep doubling down But as you just say, the more they double down on these things, the more everyday people who hadn't considered anything like this and just thought authority is authority and we must do as they're told, get more and more agitated and say, I'm not sure that this is correct, and start to perhaps feel that tightening, the throttling that you mentioned.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people actually trying for this not to happen, so that they don't actually win in their fight to control and to manipulate humanity. And so there are people doing great work behind the scenes. And one of the things I heard, and it's a beautiful way of explaining it, it's like a game of chess. Imagine you've got two master chess players. They know the moves on the board, they know what's going on. And let's say the black chess pieces, that player knows that in 7 moves he's in checkmate.
Right.
And the white chess player knows that in 7 moves he's got that person in checkmate.
Yeah.
Now the black player knows that the white one knows that, so what does he do? He has to keep making the moves in the hope that the white one's going to mess up and make a wrong move, but that's not going to happen because he already knows, you see.
Right.
Yeah. So they're just having to play out these moves in order to try to create confusion, right? And then you have us, the audience, spectating the game.
Yes.
Where we're not aware of what's going on the board because we can't really see the board, and we're not as master chess players as, we see some moves that are being made,
right,
and we're aware of them.
Yes.
But we don't see the bigger picture to all yet. These two master chess players do see it, what's going on, and that one knows it's done. Now it's just a case of playing the moves until the game's over.
That's interesting because I suppose there's two things there that I know from my audience who email me. Some who feel frightened, and they take solace in if I'm being positive or laughing at the foe that are trying to do stuff to us, and they find that beneficial. But they often feel alone, that they can't do anything. And then there's, I suppose, people like me and people like yourself maybe, who feel that we're doing something, but is it enough? But are you saying that even though there may be millions of us around the world who are feeling like that, actually, either collectively or even behind all of us, there are these master chess players who are already there, and that we've got to, I suppose, have faith that, because we don't know who they are, but presumably they're there.
Right. Oh, they're there. Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's what I believe anyway.
Right.
That's
all very well, you believing it.
Right.
We all want to trust that, don't we? How do we know you're right?
Well, you have to learn to trust yourself, you see, because anybody can tell you anything.
Yes.
But it's all about learning to trust your own intuition and trust your own guidance. This is what we don't do. This is why we're in where we are now.
Yes.
Because we've learned not to trust our own intuition and guidance and not speak up for ourselves and not say no.
Yeah, well, no, that's very true.
Yeah,
and that's one of the messages I've been putting out, and I think and I said this in a talk that I gave, because I've been self-employed most of my life, I haven't worked for big companies where there's tiers of hierarchy with people keeping you in your place and saying, no, that's beyond your pay grade, and all those sort of silly terms. And so therefore I'm able to sort of think for myself a lot more and go, no, why should I do this? Why shouldn't I do that? Just because you're dressed as a policeman or you're trying to find me. Not that I tend to argue with policemen, because I don't really want to be spent a night overnight, because they've got this imaginary power that we somehow still let them have. But because, and I suppose many other people who have had, whether it's innate or whether it's because they're self-employed or they run small businesses or they just are naturally, what would be the word, not argumentative, but they like to question everything, who perhaps didn't go along when the government said jump and have something shoved into your arm and going, no, that sounds screwy. So I feel that's been my savings, grace, the fact that I haven't been in big corporations where you're being groomed.
Well, indoctrination, isn't it?
And indoctrinated. And I think that's been my good. But I know that a lot of people have, and they get scared, and they don't find it easy to say no when you're being asked to,
well, when your
save
job's
a
on the
granny.
line, right? When
And
your rent's got to be paid and your bills have to be paid.
Exactly.
And so it's a form of blackmail
And fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of fear.
Yeah. So that person you mentioned earlier, that person that might feel alone. So the word of support to that would be that remember that people are doing this all over the world, all around the clock. You're never alone. So if you want to put attention and intention to changing the status quo, do it. You're not alone. You are not disconnected from anybody. You are connected to everyone that there is. It's just on a bigger scale than we see it on a physical level, and what we've been taught as well.
Now, I know there was, and I've written it down. There was this other element. We had a brief chat before we recorded, which was an astonishing thing. And now some people may know this, and some people perhaps this will be completely new to them, as it was to me. And this is to do with the timelines and how you told me that actually we're not in 2023. So
Yes.
this needs a little bit of unraveling.
Yeah.
To tell us why we're not actually in 2023, and so predictions for 2030 are a bit out of kilter.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is fascinating.
Absolutely. So if we go right back to there is one calendar, the earliest calendar, I can't remember the name of it, but the Ethiopian Orthodox calendar was based upon that.
Right.
And it was all based upon the lunar cycles. Okay, and so the lunar cycles actually equaled 13 months in a year. So you'd have not a whole 13 months, but you'd have the lunar cycles, and then whatever was left over for that 13th month would then go on, and then you'd start the new month again with the lunar cycle. So it was all in hand with the lunar cycles. And then a lunatic came in to power called Julius Caesar, and he created the Julius calendar. And so in the Ethiopian Orthodox calendar, there's 24.15 hours in a day, so that's 24 and a quarter hours in a day.
So just a little bit more hours.
15 minutes.
15 minutes each day, which of course adds up.
And he said, "Oh, hang on a minute, maybe we don't want to do that extra 15 minutes. Let's just get rid of it." So he got rid of 15 minutes every day.
Every day,
right?
Yeah.
Well, that accumulates after time, and so I think it was in 18 something that they realised, oh, actually we're a little bit kind of what was the other calendar that came in? It was the Julius calendar, and then the
Gregorian? No. Is it
Gregorian,
is
Gregorian calendar, yeah. Well done. High five.
I kept pointing there.
And so that came in, and they said, oh, well, yeah, we're actually kind of behind a little bit. So they added, and in one of the calendars you can actually see a jump from one date to the next.
Like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, but then later again they said, oh, we're actually 8 years behind. We need to speed it up by 8 years. So they added 8 years onto a calendar, right? For no apparent reason.
Right.
Other than that's what they just believed.
To correct what they thought was correcting it.
Right?
Yeah.
And when they did that, we had a prophecy made from a long, long time ago from the Mayans, something called the Mayan calendar.
Ah, yes, I've heard of the Mayan calendar.
Yes, and the Mayan calendar predicted it said the end of times, which was then manipulated, I don't know why, to make it sound something really scary, the end of the world, in 2012. And then when 2012 came, what happened?
In 2012?
Yeah, nothing.
No. Well, nothing I can remember.
No, nothing happened.
No big major event.
Everyone said, what a load of whatever, right?
Yeah.
These Mayans, they have no idea, do they? What are they talking about?
Yeah.
And people. So it brought us to an element of judgment and to switch off from any kind of belief about the Mayans and what they could have predicted.
Right.
However, forgetting that we'd actually sped up time by 8 years, when we hit 2012, it was actually only 2004.
Ah.
In the real, true calendar.
In the true calendar.
So we go, okay, 2012, we're 8 years ahead. So when the true calendar hit 2012, what year were we in?
But bear in mind we were 8 years behind.
8 years ahead.
8 years ahead. And
Yeah.
when we say it again?
Yep. So when the Ethiopian Orthodox calendar reached 2012,
Yes.
what year were we in?
2020.
And what happened in 2020?
Oh gosh! Now there was something. I'm sure there was something.
It escaped
Everybody,
me.
yeah. The world stood still.
The world ended in the way that we knew it, and what it was saying, and so it was perfectly predicted.
How about that? That is,
You know, it was perfectly predicted, and the world stood still.
Yeah. We
You know,
stopped the cars. We
the
stopped
end
the
of
aeroplanes,
times.
The end of time.
And times.
Times.
Yeah,
the end of
not time.
Not the end of time.
But the
obviously.
end of times, yeah. And
Yeah.
so the end of times, that's when, well, things hit the fan, you know, and it all changed. Now the world's gone a bit loony. Why?
Yes.
Because that was predicted, the end of times. We're coming into a new time.
So is it going to start a new time again? Is that it? And so it doesn't just sort of go like an alarm clock where it gets to the point and the alarm goes off, ding, 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 and then immediately.
Well, it is. We work on cycles. This
Right.
is another thing we're not taught, you know, that should be taught at school and everywhere else. You know, that we have these cycles. If you look at 2023, well, what was happening in 1923? Do you know?
We'd come to the end of the First World War. You had the Great Depression.
And what was that all about?
Money.
Hang on a minute.
Is it about money?
Hang on a minute. And where are we today?
100 years later, and yeah, it's
That's
something
almost
about
cyclical,
money.
isn't it? Or
It's very
and quite predictable.
Yes,
When you start looking at it like
that's
that.
true. Because we would still have been 8 years out of kilter in 1923.
Wouldn't have made a difference.
Wouldn't have made,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the year of 2030 is not the year really that is going to be that change. It's a very important number because it's three of the same number, 2022.
Yeah.
8 years behind will be 2022, 222.
222, as opposed to 666.
Yes.
Just so you know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so although there's so does that change the predictions or the intended idea? You know, we're supposed to be going to net zero in 2030. Does it
Yeah.
mean that we've got another 8 years?
What it means is the more we become aware of this, we have the potential to change stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But there is one great change that's happening outside of our control, right? Because these natural cycles happen. But there are a couple of other things here that what they keep trying to do. They keep trying to throw us off of timelines,
Right.
right? Because the best way to keep someone in a state of mindlessness and not really knowing what's going on is to keep them confused.
Yes.
The way you keep them confused is you take them completely out of what is the natural cycle of things. So I've written some things down here. So one that we've just talked about was the calendar. They've kept you outside of the true calendar, the dates. And then the other one is the seasons. Like we celebrate New Year's Eve on the 1st of January.
Yes.
Well, what life starts at the 1st of January?
That's very true. Yeah,
You know?
I grant you that. And because we've always had January the 1st, it seems very normal. But I suppose spring,
Well, that whole thing from 24th
get
to the
to
1st
Easter,
of January. Yeah.
and then
Life begins,
Life
right?
begins, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The whole
And-
resurrection thing. 40
And in the whole
days
East, they know this and they practice that every time.
Yeah, because the Chinese New Year is a different time, and we all
Right.
sort of laugh at the Chinese, going, "Oh, you got it wrong. It's
Yeah,
January
you're way
the 1st,
out."
doesn't it seem
Exactly.
sensible?" But actually, no, you're quite right. So,
That mass hypnosis.
Hmm.
And so what you do is you take people out of a timeline of when the year actually begins. That's
Right.
another
psyop.
way to absolutely 100%. The other one is history. They're finding out things about history now that they never knew, or maybe they knew but they didn't want you to know.
Like ancient civilizations.
Absolutely 100%. Yes.
How the pyramids were made.
Yep. If you go to there's a few ancient sites actually out there now. The oldest now is I think it's called Gadang Patang, and
It's called what?
Gadang Patang, and it's in Asia somewhere off one of the islands, and they found some ruins there that look as though they are like at least 15,000 years old, which way predates civilization, what we're supposed to be able to do.
Gosh.
Yeah. So and there's another one which just escaped my mind at the moment. But so you've got those things that, again, they're throwing you off the timeline of how old we really are and how long we've actually been around.
Yes, as a species.
Okay. The other one is weather, which we've discussed at the beginning. They keep throwing you off the weather. Allegedly, we have had the hottest July since 127,000 years.
I mean, how can they tell that 120,000 years? Because haven't we gone through an ice age in between that? Did we not have an ice age? I mean, how could it be the hottest if there was an ice age with ice covering, well, not quite down to the South Downs, but sort of where the Watford Gap is, I think it came down to, which must have made driving bloody awful. Yeah. But and you talk to anybody, and we were at the farm shop earlier today, and they're on a farm, and so they know the temperature because that's with animals and things. They're very aware of it. And I said, apparently it's been the hottest July, and they just looked at me and they said, where are you getting that from? That's a load of old rubbish. And I said, yeah, I know. The great, what is it? We're in the instead of global warming, it's now global boiling. I mean, they're catastrophizing.
Again, it's that hypnosis. They're trying to keep you in the loop of that hypnosis. Keep you going.
And all that grease rubbish, which is set up by arsonists, which happens every year.
They drip feed things. They have a place just down from Downing Street where they do all their psychological testing. And David Icke actually speaks about this as well, and it's literally just down the road from Downing Street, and they do all their testing there of how actually they can get information out to influence the public.
Yes.
And it ain't all good. And the other thing about...
It's falling apart though now, isn't it? Because, I mean, here's the thing that I mean, sorry to interrupt your flow, but one of the videos I put out this morning was, I think the unintended consequences of giving us the internet has given the ability that we can sit here, and unless of course YouTube decide to throttle the video or completely cut it, but we can sit here, as so many people are, they're doing talking their truth, whatever that may be, and getting people to evaluate, is that true? Could that be true? Not necessarily saying it's true, but it's getting people
to question it, right?
Exactly.
And one of the best ways to get people to question is not to tell them what is. It's ask them. Would it make sense? Like, have you ever looked at and ask it in a form of a question? Because this is all about the subconscious mind. If it's programmed and in a pattern of where it has a belief system, it will not want to let go of that belief, because it's what keeps, and especially if it's a core belief, the government look after us. Why would they want to do this to us? Why would they want us to put stuff up in the sky? All this stuff. Of course, if you're totally bought into that belief, there's no way somebody's going to change it by going, no, you just need to change your belief. That's impossible.
Right.
So, but the way that you do get into the subconscious is asking in forms of questions, because then it has to work out, is this dangerous or is it not?
Yes.
And so at least it just opens up the mind to possible. Is it possible?
Is it possible? Yeah.
And we have the internet. Again, this was a channel that came in. So they're hell-bent on trying to get us onto the internet. But we also have something called the InTuneNet.
InTuneNet?
Yeah.
As
the
intuitive.
InTuneNet.
InTuneNet.
Which is our natural ability to take information, to receive information, to receive knowledge.
So
where do you think all these people had these amazing ideas and revolutionary technologies from?
People like Tesla.
Yeah. Tesla. Where do you think he was getting it from?
Yeah.
This was downloads. So we have access to all that.
Right. And
but we've become reliant upon
and doing it and not quitting.
Yes.
Because I've learned that. Don't quit. I'm going to be going off and doing
it. So the other thing about weather as well is them throwing up these chemtrails, is that these reflective particles that they've tested up there, they have strontium, barium, aluminium, and even what's the other one I mentioned?
Oh, now you've got me.
Graphene. Thank you. Yeah, so graphene. When you actually look at what those do, and aluminium in particular, where there was a study done with rats, and they started to develop all these neurological diseases, issues such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and stuff like that. And when you actually start looking at how aluminium interacts with our brain and the electrical impulse that happens, it's no wonder that this is on the increase. Why is it on such an increase?
Yes.
What's been going on since the 1940s for this to happen?
Right. And all the spraying, and we're breathing it all in.
A wonderful friend of mine gave me a link to a documentary, and it's called, I don't know if you've heard of it, Frankenskies.
Oh, Frankenskies. No, I haven't heard of it, but it's a good play on words.
Absolutely. Like, it just shows you, and it's all in the media of what they're doing.
Yes.
You know, they're telling you about these chemicals that they're putting in the sky, you know, right from back then.
And I mean, it's interesting because you think that they could easily poison us if they wanted to. So it's not about that.
But what do they gain out of that? That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, because then they have to fight among themselves, and they don't really want that.
Yes, because there's only about 1,000 of them,
yeah,
and 8 billion of us.
But if you imagine that takes out a lot of sunlight, which it has over in the UK, especially in July, when we're supposed to have that amazing sunlight.
Yeah, to grow food and for ourselves, vitamin D and all of that to excel.
Isn't it interesting that, because we live in a three-dimensional world, that's why I'm talking about all these different timeline things that are disrupting, is because we're multidimensional and we live in this 3D reality, and it's not just going to be light because of the crops, it's not just going to be light because of vitamin D, it includes all of it. You know, if you could see it was just this three-dimensional ball, you know, then you'd see, oh, everything is all about, you know, it's all connected to the whole lot. This is why we need to be looking up rather than looking down.
Right.
And it's interesting that people keep talking about food shortages and stuff like this, and so not having the direct sunlight that some plants need to flourish for the winter, for the summer.
And they call it the Great Dimming, don't they? Because they are effectively dimming. And I think you mentioned before that these particles, of course, have a reflective quality.
Yes.
But a particle isn't just one-sided.
That's right. It's reflective on all sides.
Right.
So if they're reflecting heat that's going out of the atmosphere, they're also reflecting heat that's trying to release from the planet itself, because the planet's releasing a lot of heat.
Yes, a natural process.
And so what do you think would happen if that heat gets bounced back?
Well, you're creating a greenhouse effect, aren't you? And which will be, they'll say, is CO2.
And when we look at CO2, so then we look at the science of CO2, and we take the ice core samples that were taken from Lake Vardstock and another lake in Antarctica, and they had 450,000 years of data to sift through, so they had a lot of things that they could look at. And what they discovered was there was this natural peak and trough of weather, of heating up and cooling down. And we have these natural cycles of heating up and cooling down. And the interesting thing, what they found was, we're told that the CO2 rises and therefore the temperature rises.
Yeah, because we manufacture the CO2 and then because of that, But the science
tells us that the heat rises and the CO2 follows behind.
Right, so there's a lag.
It's what they're doing is they're flipping it around again. They're throwing you off of that line.
Right.
You know, the science line now. They're throwing you off of science.
So it's not. I mean, I've always said it's not the CO2, but that's it. So the sea heats up.
Yeah.
And then the CO2 is released.
Yep.
And they make out, oh no, it's because the CO2's come out. That's why the sea is heated up, and it's all.
And it's natural cycles, but it puts fear into people.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. And they're telling the school children.
It creates confusion. It creates disorientation. It creates fear. And it's the best way to keep you not knowing who and what you really are and how powerful you are as a beautiful being, a human being, actually a spiritual being having a human experience, because that's what we really are. And then you go into the healing dimension that they throw you off.
Yeah.
You know, energy healing. They've been using energy healing for a long, long time. They were using it for thousands of years ago with frequencies, and certain frequencies would do certain things for the body. They knew this back then. And then it suddenly got phased out, you know, because this element of control needed to happen, and they wanted to make more money and just have, and it's actually beyond money, all this.
Yes.
It's more about a control of a species, right? It's actually about the control of I believe anyway, it's about the control of a species. And then you look at the zodiac signs, okay? Again, they throw you off of these timelines. So the zodiac, and they say, so that Christianity doesn't include the zodiac in their belief, but all the Eastern religions do. But actually, very covertly and very cleverly and discreetly, Christianity does include the zodiac, but they use it in the form of the 12 apostles.
Oh, I see. That's interesting.
That's something to look into, because it's really interesting. And when you look at the Last Supper, when they're all around that painting, they're all around the table, you have a look at what each one's doing, and they're representing the zodiac in their shape of their body or in the shape of their hands.
In the Last Apostle picture?
Yeah.
I wonder if I can just quickly find that.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on a minute. I'm going to try.
Yes.
So the Last Supper, that famous painting by whomever it was.
Yeah.
The Last... That's not how you spell it. The Last Supper.
And if you put zodiac after it, you may get the image up then of the actual outlines of these zodiac signs.
Okay, here we go. Let's see what Google is going to put up for us. Hang on, bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go into images here. Here's one. Let's just open that in another tab.
So there's one that they have like a red outline showing you the exact zodiac shape. So all those people in those specific postures are not there just as like, oh, we're just having a bit of a party, we're having a bit of a knees up. There's specific reasons why they're doing what they're doing.
That needs some examination, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. How about that? If anybody knows any more about that, do let us know. That would be.
So this is all things they throw us off of to keep us in question, to keep us confused, to keep us in a state of deliriousness.
Yes.
You know?
It's working.
Well, it is at the moment.
It is at the moment. But we got the Great Awakening.
Exactly, and this is where that big long channeling came in about the transitioning of timelines, because I think it came in at the right time. I just haven't spoken about it on the platform like this until the right time. And I think now is that right time.
Now is the right time. Well, I'm pleased that you spoke about it on my channel. And if anybody else who does simmering, who's a channeler, and they may have had similar downloads.
Absolutely.
Presumably.
Absolutely, because I see things like when I knew what was going to come on and speak about it to begin with the chemtrails, and then your monologue pops up, and you're talking about, and I was like, to me that's confirmation. I'm like, yep, that is what we're meant to kind of go in with as well. We've got to see where we are in order to know where we're going to go.
Yes.
We can't just pretend and sing little lullabies and think that everything's hunky-dory, you know?
I don't know any lullabies.
Even though really, on the grander scale of it, everything really is hunky-dory.
Yes.
We just get too emotionally involved in it as human beings. We take it too personally, we take it too serious, and we think, oh my gosh, because we're not aware of the bigger picture that's going on.
Is that because that we have an ego that sort of sits on our spirituality?
It's because we have a division between us and spirit, in the sense that that veil, if you like.
And
you know?
And why would spirit create that veil? Why would it put us into that position where we don't know? If we are, as you say, are spiritual beings having an earthly experience or a physical experience, why do we not know that? Would that not help us understand that intrinsically?
That's a great question.
I'm glad I asked.
Let me explain that one.
Yeah.
Get
out of that one.
If you were a master chess player,
yeah,
and you knew every possible move that could ever be made on that chessboard, how exciting would the game of chess be for you?
Yeah, it would be boring.
If you are an infinite being, all-knowing, all-being,
right,
infinitely knowledgeable about all things, because you are all things, how would you just sit there and twiddle your thumbs after and go, right, well, that's it, it's all done, I'm just going to sit here for eternity and do nothing?
It's a bit like if you've got a computer game, like one of the shoot-'em-up first-person things, and if there's no random element to it, and you're just walking through one room to the other, and there's nobody to hide from, it would be just dull. After 10 minutes, you kind of go, okay, I've got this. And the fact that there are traps and conflicts and good things, and you collect things, makes it fun and interesting. So in a way, that's why life is what it is. But at certain points, it's good to be able to tune back in and say, actually, this is just a game. It's don't you know, if you're in that computer game, it clearly is saying, don't get too emotionally wrapped up in here about these dragons and monsters, because it is just a computer game.
Yeah. But we take it personally because they make us jump, right? When they jump out on us.
That's very true.
See? So we react to it. And this is exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah.
We're reacting to it instead of staying in a space of like, okay, and just learning to respond rather than react.
But we should do something.
Absolutely.
I mean,
we can do something, but it's going to happen anyway.
Oh,
this is the big illusion that we have to change this, and it's like we don't have to change anything. Don't worry, it's gonna change anyway, because it's all about these great cycles. In India, they talk about the yuga cycles, and these great cycles. And the fourth cycle is all about chaos and division and everything else. But it's the shortest cycle of them all.
Right.
That oneness, that whole piece, is the biggest cycle. And then there's the questioning that, oh, hang on a minute, we're becoming more aware of ourselves, which is and then another cycle, and then chaos. But chaos is the shortest cycle, but it's the most abrupt cycle, because it takes us right out of that knowing of who we are.
So they say, I hear, that there's going to be some hard times ahead, in the next couple of years.
I call it stirring up the sediment.
Stirring up the sediment.
If you're going to drain anything, the sediment's going to be stirred up. You've got to wait for that to settle. It will settle, because everything does.
Yeah.
Everything heals. Scab on your arm when you were little, falling over, eventually it healed. You don't even know that it happened. It just healed.
So on one hand, we mustn't get too worried, but on the other hand, we can't just sit back and do nothing.
We can be aware, and people think, I should say, that sitting back and just visualizing the world they want to live in is doing nothing. They're not really proactive, but actually that has more power than they even realize. Right. Again, because of how we learned to change the violent crime rate in Washington, D.C. Never done before, never done since. So
it's weird, isn't it, that they did it and then they never repeated
The Indians used to go out there on the American plains, and they used to do their rain dance, and the rain used to come.
So Charles Dowding, who I interviewed, a great no-dig gardener, he has some copper tubes and a couple of crystals attached to it.
Yeah.
And on the face of it, you think it's a very poor Star Trek type of gun. It's like not even 1963 Doctor Who black and white B-movie style apparatus. And yet he says that by believing in this, when the chemtrails come, around there it's dark skies, around there it's dark skies, but over him it stays blue.
Now, it wouldn't matter if he had a beautiful copper thing with a crystal on, or if he had a piece of plastic with a wooden twig at the end of it.
Right.
It's the belief. It's the belief, and it's what helps you to kind of secure your belief, and strengthen your belief, so that it becomes paramount to anything else. These guys all know that.
Yeah.
And we haven't been told the secret, which is why they've had that upper hand for this.
Well, we're going to get the upper hand now, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to sort that all out. Our hour is up. I'm concerned about your parking outside the house, so I don't want you to get a ticket at the end of this. Thank you so much for coming down.
You're so welcome. It's been a pleasure, honestly.
Before we go, we should say you have your website, which is happymindhappyu.com. I'll put the link in the description. You are an energy healer, so if anybody wants to get in touch, you can do it remotely as well as in the physical stance.
Yeah.
And so that would be good. And if you just want to talk to Colin and barrage him with a deluge of emails, you'd be very welcome. Go to his website, find the email address.
Yes.
And of course, we all should be, maybe not should, there's no such thing as should, I suppose, but it would be a good thing certainly to look up and to spend time understanding who we are, and then practicing that, getting the downloads for ourselves.
Yeah, learning to trust yourself, and also that transitioning of timelines. The message, the ultimate message from that, because I know we're out of time, but the ultimate message to that is the worst thing you can do is be afraid. I mean, you can be afraid if you want, but that's not really going to get you anywhere.
Right.
Just don't be afraid of what's happening. There is a natural cycle happening, and we're going in two directions. Some people on that lower vibrational plane will go and experience life of that control and everything else, and those that are on that higher vibrational plane will actually go this way to actually experience reality that way without these things happening. And it has to happen like that because it's energy. It's how energy works.
I've got my tickets for that high vibrational plane, so I should be
Yes,
boarding
you have.
very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I hope you've got something out of that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Our time is up. Not that we have a specific timeline, but I am worried about his car. So thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with more monologues and other interviews, but from the studio, with hopefully the 2-camera business work quite well. I'm hoping. Until next time, thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Richard.
And from both of us, until next time, goodbye.
See you later.